Good afternoon. We have the pleasure of uh, launching a conference which we hope that next year there will be no pandemic to keep us apart, and we will be able to host this event physically next year. It was one of our objectives since day one when we took office in the municipality. So this year we will have an online event split in 4 sessions, in 4 conference days until Wednesday. There will be various sessions organized, one of which is the one we have today, involving people in the forefront of this struggle of ours to highlight the Distomo massacre and all the Nazi crimes. We must never forget our history because, as we all very well know, if history is forgotten, then it tends to repeat itself. And we don't want this to happen in our country and nowhere else in the world. Today, we have Mr. Mitakidis in this session, an artist who has written songs for Distomo, Mr. Joachim Lau, who's fighting his own legal struggle in Italy. And until now, the Italian government, has not yet signed and validated the decision by the court, the Supreme Court. We have people from the AK Distomo, members of the AK Distomo in Germany, who are standing by us in this effort of ours to support the cause of Nazi crimes in Europe. And we also have with us the University of West Attica. Thanks to our collaboration for the preservation of the relics of the people massacred in Distomo. This will be something available for all visitors in order to see the relics, the bones, and what's left of the people massacred. And this is something we do with the university in order to highlight the cause of ours, and together with the scientific staff of the university, we have set an objective, which is to establish something like different department or division here in Distomo with the relics in collaboration with the university. So once again, let me say that we are midway a huge effort. And this year we have the first installment of this conference. Next year, our objective will be to have a physical conference so we can honor the people who lost their lives in that massacre, a physical conference as it should be, because, of course, health comes first, and that's why we have to keep the protocols. And we decided this year to host this event online. This year, we were a bit taken by surprise. However, we decided to hold this event online because of the fact that things were quite tough. We decided to keep this, to have this event online. In the coming days, we will have politicians from Germany, from Europe, people coming from Santana, from Auschwitz, from various places in the world where similar Nazi crimes have been committed. Because for us, the important thing is to understand that this issue is a political one, and those who commit those crimes have to pay, and we must never forget the lives of those who died. Once again, I'd like to wholeheartedly thank you all for being here with us, for honoring us with your struggle in your own way, because this is the best way to honor the people who lost their lives. Thank you very much. We want you next to us because, as I told you, it's not just an issue of ours. It's a pan-European one. It's a fight that we fight all together, and we keep on fighting against racism, Nazism, and fascism. Once again, thank you very much, and hopefully next year we will meet in person. We'll all be healthy, safe, and we will be able to meet together and discuss about this topic next year. So once again, the best success for this conference. And I'd like to give now the floor to Mr. Dimakas. in order to introduce the panel. Once again, thank you very much, dear Mayor. Thank you for your introduction. So today's first session, the first of the 4 sessions we're going to have in this 4-day event. We hope that this event will be a pan-European event on crimes against humanity committed by Nazi. So the first session will discuss 2 very important concepts, prominence and claim. As the mayor said, Mr. Stathas, we have with us people who have, in their own way, tried to highlight, to shed light in the past years on the issue of the memory, of the prominence of the claim with respect to the massacre, the Distomo massacre. This is about our rights for reparations, which is a fixed right of ours, a fixed claim of ours, and that's something we will always keep on repeating. Those who have committed crimes against humanity, these people have to pay for them, and they will pay in the way, in the suitable way, in the legal way, in the way that justice suggests, by according to the law. Today, 77 years after that crime, allow me to say that the issue has been developed properly, and today we're trying to shed light on this crime for various points, artistic points. For instance, there have been songs, there have been novels, paintings, many artistic works about the massacre. Also, we have scientific works like the one signed by the staff of the University of Attica, of West Attica, in order to highlight the memory of those people. We also have legal proceedings, litigations about those crimes that show that now reparations against those crimes constitute a universal cause. We also have members of today of AK Distomo with us who have been fighting, have been very actively claiming for this cause on the street. And members of other organizations who have taken a stand, and as a result, we have been able to shed light on the memory of those people by various viewpoints. However, 77 years after that massacre, we have a negative aspect. The negative aspect is that we have not been successful in the so-called legal claim. However, we have tried, and we now have the unanimous decision by the Greek Parliament. We have allies from Germany, from the civil society, and given the SDOE, the National Greek Council for the Reparations, we have a pan-European and pan-Hellenic move to claim these reparations. So let's start with the contribution by the University of West Attica. We have the honor of welcoming Professor and Dean of University, Mr. Kladis, Professor Kladis, and he will discuss about the project of the conservation of antiquities and of the relics. And that's why we'll have Professor Georgios Panagiaris, who is the professor of the department competent. We also have we have the Dean, Mr. Kaldis, graduate from the Coventry University on environmental presentation. He has a PhD and post-PhD studies on financial policies at the University of Athens, the Capodistria University of Athens, and he has been actively involved in various postgraduate courses, and currently he serves as the Dean of the University of West Attica. Mr. Panagiaris, a person who has been visiting Distomo quite often, and he has been the one establishing the laboratory, the workshop actually, on the conservation of and the study of the relics or the bones of the remains, my apologies, of the Distomo massacre victims. He is a professor of biological studies, of environmental studies. He is a licensed expert on conservation by the Ministry of Culture, and he is the head of the Department of Conservation of Antiquities and Works of Art at the University of West Attica. He is involved in various programs, both national and international. He is involved in various cross-sectoral and cross-disciplinary projects, and allow me to say that it's a great honor for us that he, together with his students, have paid great attention, and he has emphasized his work on the preservation, the documentation of the remains. So, the word to Professor Kaldis.
I would like to thank dear friends, as a rector of the University of Western Attica, second in Greece. We have 55,000 students and a lot of PhD students, 6 different departments. I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in the conference on this massacre. Referring to Mr. Stathas and his colleagues, I would like to congratulate them on their initiative to organize this conference, because through this conference we will have the opportunity to communicate the claims and promote the interests of the descendants. This commemoration conference is of paramount importance because it underlines the need to all of us fight against racism, discrimination, and violence. Our university is part of the society, and our strategy is to reinforce the fight against inequalities. Your region is of paramount to us. The municipality of Coron has already given us an area to work and preserve it. And of course, we are there to document the remains in the wider area. We are there in Distomo because we want to substantiate the case, and we have always been there in all celebrations and commemoration of Distomo. First, in Greece, all of us, we remember the struggle, first against the Italians, then against the Germans, and of course, all struggles of Greece for their liberation. I won't talk for long. Documentation of historical memory is of paramount importance to humanity. All of us need to learn from the past and avoid problems in the future. I wish you all the best with the conference, and we wish from now on sustainable development for the municipality. We will always be with you. Thank you, and we give the floor to Mr. Kanayaris. Following the speech of the rector, I would like to thank initially the mayor of Distomo, Arachova Antikira, for the honor. So, greeting all of you, and especially the citizens of Distomo and Greece. I would like to share our thoughts. I share the screen first of all, and then my thoughts, and tell you that the contribution of science to the preservation of historical memory and the community demand for the documentation of massacre victims remains is not a request from all three people that actually are characterized by the value of humanitarianism, but it is a conventional obligation of ours from the Constitution. If we see the first article of the law on the protection of the archaeological remains, we see that protection has as its objective to preserve historical memory and upgrade the environment. In article number 2, we have the intangible cultural goods. I would like to touch upon two issues. When we talk about preservation of historical heritage, we focus on two pillars. First of all, to protect and preserve these goods, and we have various stages in doing so. First of all, we have the identification and documentation. We have the initial preservation, and having this in mind, we started our course in Distomo. In 2019, the mayor of Distomo, Rakova, and Antikyra, via Amalia Papaioannou, referred to us in order to touch upon certain issues of risks faced in the remains of the victims of Distomo massacres. The University of Western Attica responded right away, and with our own funds, we organized the workshop in situ with the participation of a lot of students and under the auspices of two of our main professors. And we had the opportunity not only to identify the needs for steps to be taken further in order to protect the remains, but at the same time, we tried to hear the narratives, to listen to the narratives of the people, because via the preservation of cultural heritage, we learn a lot. The remains talked to us, told us a lot about the massacre, and we heard a lot of stories from the descendants of those people. Because of that, we started a cooperation among the academic community and the municipality. Last year, we promoted the cooperation with the students of a postdoc department and the municipality, and in cooperation with the Museum of Victims of Nazism in Distomo, we decided to have some digital artifacts, and the coordinators were Mrs. Vermitaki and myself, and we had a cooperation with the head of the museum, Mrs. Amalia Papaioannou. We wanted to enhance the experience of the visitors to the museum. via digital artifacts. We wanted to create some exhibitions to promote the historical knowledge and historical contents. We wanted to enhance museum narrative in having as an objective to approach the past and at the same time maintain the memory of the victims massacred. We focused on certain thematics directed, connected directly to this, the massacre of Distomo, like, for example, human rights. According to our study, we promote three digital exhibits that will allow visitors by touching upon this application to have rich experiences, to touch upon some pictures, maps, or videotape material, and of course, narratives regarding the perpetrators and the victims. The first exhibit focuses on the woman of this film, and that is how one may proceed with identifying a woman from this film. The second one has to do with the perpetrators. We have a narrative of the massacre, and we have serious questions raised regarding the responsibility of the perpetrators. And the questions are, who were they? How did they act? And why did they act so? And you can see how we imagine the implementation of this digital exhibit. And the third digital exhibit focuses on a special category the whole humanity is sensitive to. The children of this Distomo. The visitors will be able to learn about the everyday life of these children before the massacre. The events they experienced during the massacre, because the children of this Distomo have a name, and we are eager to communicate this name to humanity. We have plans to promote this material in cooperation with the municipality, as I said earlier. And we are eager to have certain initiatives I have already described and complement them thoroughly with other aspects, like, for example, the documentation of Distomo massacre's victims' remains. We will have the preservation of their remains, and we will document the massacre, trying to substantiate the claims of the municipality and bring justice to the victims. We will have Dr. Konstantinos Iliopoulos from Liverpool John Moores University and his colleague, and we will try to protect the remains of the massacre's victims. We will promote in a way and manage the information of the historical material. And of course, we will take advantage of the digital technologies in order to do so. The visitors will get information digitally, and of course, it is up to the museum to clarify what kind of information will be disclosed for each victim separately. And the visitors will be able to have a combination of combined information. And of course, when we have scientists, more information will be disclosed on the remains. And we will have a surveillance system for the area where the remains are preserved. And at the same time, and that will be part of the heritage of the municipality, we are planning an area where the remains will be preserved and protected. And this area will be also able to support further needs of preservation of the municipality. And we will do that in cooperation with our postdoc department, because beyond the victims' remains, there is an archaeological heritage in the wider area. Another request we actually received as a request was to have the topography of the massacre per se. And head of this action, and I refer to the names of my colleagues, because as you can see, we just started with a couple of us, and now we have a lot of our university involved, and Andreas Tatari is professor of the engineering department is there to assist us. Why do we do that? Because society needs to find answers, and citizens need to find answers to the questions raised when we have so many adverse events against humanity. Thank you very much for your attention.
We would like to thank the dean and, of course, all the professors at the university. We would like to thank them for presenting so comprehensively the work they've done. Indeed, there was just a couple of individuals, a drop that started as a drop, and now it becomes a stream and then a river. So as of this year, we will have the first salvation pathway, as we call it. It's the pathway used by many of the survivors of that massacre, because on that same night, they took this path. They were running in order to flee, and we call it the pathway of salvation from Distomo to Agios Mamas. It's an amazing, a beautiful place, some fountain, there is a cave there. We will have it announced in the last day of this event, and it's just one part of the things prepared by the university for the mapping of this massacre, because there are also other points, locations that embraced people embrace the people of this summer who were trying to flee and survive. Some people stayed there not just one day, but 2 or 3 weeks in order to survive. So, after we saw the scientific and academic approach to highlighting this monstrosity, let's now discuss about something else, which is the legal aspect of the claim. The legal proceedings that have already started back in 1995 in Greece, of course. Then we went to The Hague, and this goes on also in Italy. There is a parallel, let's say, course. So there's another claim, legal claim, that started in 1995 with the famous decision featuring the prefect of Viotia, Yannis Stamoulis, as the head of that movement. So today we have with us Dr. Joachim Lau, a lawyer who supported the Distomo case in Italian before the Italian courts. Mr. Lau, he is a lawyer at the Supreme Court of Italy, founder of the same name legal company. He started his career in Germany originally in the 1970s. In the last 30 years, he's been working and living and working in Florence. He's mainly active with cross-border civil suits and cases that involve Italy and Germany. Mr. Lau, you have the floor in order to give us your own approach with respect to the legal claims and the case before the Italian court. Mr. Lau, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I speak first a little bit of in German language, and I ask Mr. Antonio Bays to help me to traduce this in Greek words. Antonio, you're ready.
Ich höre dir zu und werde übersetzen.
Wunderbar. First of all, also jetzt auf Deutsch. Zunächst möchte ich ganz kurz darauf hinweisen, dass es natürlich eine wunderbare Gelegenheit ist, hier die Bürger von Distomo und die interessierten Personen an dem Fall von der Strage von Distomo zu begrüßen und sie dazu zu informieren von dem jetzigen Stand der Verfahren in Italien. Das heißt, die Vollstreckung gegen die Deutschland, die im Augenblick bei dem Landgericht in Rom anhängig ist und wo wir am 9., also diese Woche, 4 verschiedene Verfahren laufen haben. 4 verschiedene Audienzen.
Firstly, I'd like to say that this is a great opportunity that we are given to directly bring the Distomo citizens up to date about this case. Of course, I'd like to extend my greetings to the survivors of the Distomo massacre and, of course, present the current state of affairs at the legal level. I mean, the current status of the implementation in this famous decision taken by the court on the Distomo case. Allow me to say that this week, on June 9th, we have 4 cases being tried at the same time. We're talking about 4 specific hearings before the court of first instance about the Distomo case.
Kann ich widersprechen?
Bitte, ja.
Damit die technischen Einzelheiten dieses Falls in Italien für eine größere Anzahl von Leuten verständlich ist, habe ich meinem Mandanten, das ist der Präfekt von der Regione Lada, vor 2 Monaten einen Bericht geschrieben und das ist ein technischer Bericht und ich glaube, diesen habe ich schon der Gemeinde von Distomo zur Verfügung gestellt und ich habe ihn soeben auf meine Website veröffentlicht unter dem Begriff Archiv. Ist er gleich an erster Stelle abrufbar auf Griechisch und auf Deutsch. Und meine Website finden Sie unter www, also www.yolau.com. Also für die Zuhörer, die sich genauer über das Verfahren in Italien informieren wollen, ist das eine Gelegenheit. Ich lasse diesen Brief für die nächsten 1, 2 Tage dort stehen auf meiner Website. Also die Website heißt yolau.com.
Για να γίνουν
In order for people to understand the various technicalities of this process and of the current status of the case, and with respect with the implementation, the execution of the decision itself in Italy, I drafted and I recently communicated a technical report to the head of the region of Central Greece, which I also communicated to the municipality of Distomo. And this report has already been posted on my website, both in Greek and in German language. My URL is www.jolau.com. So one will be able in the coming 2 or 3 days, because then the report will be removed from online. So for the coming 2 or 3 days, each and everyone may visit the web page and download the report.
So my small contribution and speech today, I will try to speak in English. My English is not perfect. Also, my German is not perfect. And also my Italian is not perfect. Only for to say that I'm hinkender, sprechender Anwalt zwischen den verschiedenen europäischen Staaten.
Είμαι ένας δικηγόρος ανάμεσα σε διάφορες.
So I'm a lawyer standing in between various Germanic languages, Germanic countries.
The main principle of the case today is considered the immunity principle in international law. And I will take the opportunity to explain on my opinion. It's a very simple opinion, a very simple solution of law that I will offer you tonight. The 10th June reminds us that the 10th June of this year, like every year since 77 years, reminds us that the responsible state for this massacre of Distomo, the German state, has and is and still refused since 77 years to offer and to pay a damage compensation to the people of Distomo. On my opinion, this refusal is a serious violation and aggression not only for your community, but also an offense to the international legal order. It seems to me that Germany has still huge problems to become a civilized state and to get out of its cultural, juridical lockdown that ignores and threatens international law as it was recognized since hundreds of years. The kings and the presidents of the most powerful states of the world 100 years ago, those kings and presidents, they were already in the historical agenda to disappear from the surface of the modern states. When they meet in a peace conference at The Hague on 18 October 1907, in some way must have felt that the 20th centuries would confront their people and their human people with a hitherto unprecedented, cruel and inhuman warlike violence. I will remember the audience that the two wars had a cost of 60 million people. 60 million people. That's the population of Italy. They, for this feeling that the governments, the governors of the civilized states, as they call them themselves, for this feeling, they promised each others, and they texted it in the Hague Conference, in the Hague Convention for the land war. They wrote, "Civilians and combatants shall be protected and governed by the principle of international law as they result from established custom, the principle of humanity and the demands of public conscience." That these words should not remain a non-binding declaration. The international community in this time established a principle, basic rule for the behavior in a war. The right of belligerents to adopt means of injuring the enemy is not unlimited. Article 22. For these reasons, in the following Article 23 of the Hague Convention, it is and it was especially forbidden to kill and to wound treacherously individuals belonging to the hostile nation or army, and to declare that no quarter will be given. Exactly that was happened 50 or 40 years later in Distomo. To the scope of these rules, to the scope that these rules will be also respected by the states and will have a legal consequence in kind of violation, the parties agreed in Article 3, a belligerent party which violates the provisions of this said regulation shall, if the case demands, be liable to pay compensation. It shall be responsible for all acts committed by the persons forming part of its armed forces. In the conference of 1907, it was the General Gündel, member of the German delegation, that proposed to the conference to introduce a rule that grants also the individual right to access to a court of law in case that a state should violate the convention, because otherwise, so its words, these legal rules should have no effect. Therefore, in the same Article 23 that protects the population from massacres and other crude criminals, the parties to the treaty granted under letter H, it is forbidden especially forbidden to declare abolished, suspended, or inadmissible in a court of law the rights and the actions of the nationals of the hostile parties. This means that refusal to grant an access to the court is to be considered itself a war crime. The protection of these rights, human rights, we would say today, including the right to life in application of Article 46, and the protection of physical integrity of the non-combatant population, which is expressed by the corresponding prohibition of assassination and the prohibition of the use of weapons that cause unnecessary suffering, was accompanied by the individual right of a national against another hostile state to ask in the court of law a legal remedy. This individual right of access to a court of law had been forgotten, unfortunately, in the following 100 years, and even denied, as we know, by the International Court of Justice in the case Germany against Italy in 2012. But unless the Court of The Hague did not recognize its own rules, it is a legal fact that in 1998, in the Rome Statute for the International Criminal Court, it was again recognized the liability and enforceability of the individuals for the violation of their fundamental rights and the right to damage compensation. The International Court is not the International Criminal Court. It's necessary to clear this. But in any case, also in the modern written international law, the people of Distomo has the right to ask in a court of law the compensation for the crimes that they had suffered. Apart from this fact that this would violate most national, the international law to deny the people of Distomo a compensation, most international constitution of civilized state, and for this reason I have doubt if Germany is still a civilized state, today should be pay compensation in case of crimes against humanities. And this is also established and granted in Article 14 of the International Pact on Civil and Political Rights, ratified in Germany and in Italy and in Greece. Therefore, I think it is only a question of time when we had overcome this violation of the Article 23, letter H. And I hope that in future, the Italian judges will recognize this, this international law and will pay the damage compensation to the people of Distomo. This means to recognize fundamental rights, international fundamental rights, and to limit it and to abolish the principle of state immunity in the presence of serious war crimes and crimes against humanity. I will finish my speech. Maybe that someone has questions. I will make a special greetings to Mr. Rundholz. I met him in 2004 in a conference at Berlin from the celebrated with the help of the Distomo. And I will send my special greetings to him, because in this conference I met Mr. Stambulis, and in this occasion we agreed to bring the Distomo case to the Italian courts. I finished.
Ευχαριστούμε τον κύριο Λάου για την εμπεριστατωμένη.
We would like to thank Mr. Lau for his substantiated documentation of the court material and the information that we have on the 9th of June, some trials remaining in order to fulfill the whole process of reparations. And I would also like to thank Mr. Lau for his struggle in favor of Distomo. And I would like to welcome our friends from Germany, Rolf Becker, a very renowned actor in Germany. So I would like to thank him and Manfred, who have helped us in promoting the interests of the victims of Distomo. And not only. Thank you once again. Thank you very much for your presence. And it is a great honor to be here with us. And hopefully we will be in person and have the opportunity to exchange ideas and views. We've been trying by creating this network in Germany to actually underline all the atrocities of Nazism in Europe, in Greece, and elsewhere. Okay, and now we proceed with our German speakers who promote the interests of Distomo and the crimes against humanity in Greece and Europe elsewhere. We give the floor to Mr. Lars Reinsman, member of the AK Distomo. This group has struggled a lot in Germany and in Greece, and they have worked with us in Greece, in Germany, in Hague. They were present back in 2012, and in various ways they have supported our struggle, trying to raise awareness among the public. And not only them, but other friends also, as Mr. Spathas said, they have promoted the interests of Nazi atrocities. So we give the floor to Mr. Lars Reisman for his presentation.
Ich bin heute leider alleine, weil Gabriele Heinecke, die heute mit mir für den AK Distomo hier sprechen sollte, leider wegen eines Trauerfalls in der Familie nicht teilnehmen kann.
Ευχαριστώ θερμά για την πρόσκληση.
Thank you very much for the invitation. And I would like to tell you that today we were supposed to be two of us here, Gable Heineke and me from our group. Unfortunately, Heineke, because of an unfortunate event in her family, could not be here today.
Das bahnbrechende Urteil des Areopags im Fall Distomo im Jahre 2000, dass das Urteil des Landgerichts Levadia bestätigte, wodurch den Bewohnern von Distomo eine Entschädigung für das Massaker vom 10. Juni 1944 zugesprochen wurde.
Αποφασιστική σημασίας για μας,
Of a decisive importance for us to be to focus on Distomo, for us members of the AK Distomo, was this revolutionary decision of the High Court in Distomo Massacre of 2000 that ratified the decision of the court of first instance of Livadia of 1998, a case which actually justified remuneration for the victims of the massacre of the 10th of June 1944.
Die Vollstreckungsmaßnahmen gegen deutsches Eigentum in Griechenland eingeleitet hatte, haben wir Jannis Stamoulis nach Hamburg eingeladen. Eine große Veranstaltung zu Distomo im Dezember 2001 an der Universität Hamburg mit dem international bekannten Völkerrechtler Norman Pech und Basilios Kakoulias, Überlebender aus Kalavrita, war der sichtbare Startpunkt unserer Arbeit für die Entschädigung von griechischen NS-Opfern.
After the rule in favor of the victims, we invited Mr. Stamoulis, lawyer of the victims and mayor of Viotia back then, who had initiated the whole process for the execution of the favorite decision. We invited him in Hamburg and in an event organized there in December of 2001 in the University of Hamburg. We had invited also the international professor of international law, Mr. Norman Penn. Mr. Kakoulias was also present, a survivor of the massacre of Kalavrita. This meeting, this event in Hamburg was for us and still is for us a visible point, the starting point to become active on the topic for the reparation of the victims and the prosecution of the perpetrators.
Eine Delegation des AKD besuchte erstmals im Jahr 2002 Distomo. Und seitdem nimmt der AK regelmäßig an den Gedenkveranstaltungen im Juni in Distomo teil. Im Rahmen dieser Besuche haben wir mit dem Nationalrat für die Forderungen gegenüber Deutschland Demonstrationen und Kundgebungen in Athen durchgeführt, ungezählte Male vor der deutschen Botschaft oder auch mit Manolis Glesos vor der Akropolis.
Representative of our working group, AK Distomo, we visited in 2012, and ever since we do participate in the memory events in June at Distomo. In the framework of our cooperation with the National Council in favor of the claims. We have participated in protests in Athens in front of the German embassy and with Manolis Glezos at Acropolis.
Und die Bestrafung der Täter gehören für uns zusammen. Wir haben als Teil des AK angreifbare Traditionspflege gegen das Treffen von ehemaligen Nazitruppen demonstriert und versucht, Strafverfahren gegen die Nazimörder zu erreichen, unter anderem gegen Gebirgsjäger, die das Massaker von Komeno verübt haben. Gabriele Heinecke hat als Rechtsanwältin die Opfer der Massaker von Sant'Anna di Stassema und Falzano di Cortona, also 2 Massaker in Italien, in den deutschen Strafverfahren gegen die Nazitäter vertreten.
The struggle for the reparations of all victims of the crimes, of the Nazi crimes, and the prosecution of the perpetrators is, for us, of paramount importance and linked to our work as a AK Distomo. We have protested repeatedly against events of cultivating this military tradition of the German army, which exposes actually, and at the same time we have the honor to initiate trials against the Nazis, perpetrators, against, for example, members of the mountainous battalion, which is responsible for the massacre at Komena. Our lawyer, member of our group, Gabriele Heinecke, has represented the victims of massacres committed by the Nazis in Stratana di San Senna and Mazzano di Cortona, 2 Italian cities. And in these trials before German criminal courts, Gabriela has been representing the victims, as I said earlier.
Theateraufführungen, Bildungsreisen und anderen konnten wir in Zusammenarbeit mit vielen Antifaschisten, Antifaschistinnen das Anliegen der Opfer von Distomo und die historischen Tatsachen in eine größere Öffentlichkeit tragen, unter anderem bei der international bedeutenden Kunstausstellung Documenta in Kassel im Jahre 2017, wo Griechenland Gastland war.
With public promotions, some events and trips organized, we managed, along with other anti-fascist organizations, to raise awareness among the German public and talk to them about the claims or the demand for reparations, and give more information to the German people regarding this topic. Amongst others, in the framework of the exhibition of Documenta of 2017 in Kassel, where Greece had been the honored country.
Auch das Bild über Kriegsverbrechen allgemein hat sich geändert. Der Kampf der Opfer um Entschädigung und ihr Leid wird heute wahrgenommen und am menschenverachtenden Charakter der Verbrechen besteht heute kein Zweifel.
Η γνώση
Knowledge regarding the massacre of Distomo
δεν έχει εξαπλωθεί, δεν έχει διαδοθεί μόνο στη γερμανική
has not been communicated only among the German public.
γενικά η εικόνα
The whole picture of what war crime is has been substantially changed. The struggle of the victims for reparations and the suffer of the victims is now perceived in a different way now. It has been deeply understood that these crimes actually violate human dignity. The struggle of the victims for reparations is justified, and the pain, the suffering they have experienced is now understood by the public opinion in general, and in Germany is a violation of every human right.
Vor deutschen Gerichten von 2004 bis 2006 begleitet. Rechtsanwalt Martin Klingner vom AK hat die Geschwister in diesem Verfahren unter anderem vor dem Europäischen Gerichtshof für Menschenrechte vertreten.
Η ομάδα εργασίας του Δίστομο
The AK Distomo accompanied
τον δικαστικό αγώνα του Αργύρης Φουντούρη και των
the Andonis Funtouris judicial fight and his brothers from 2002 to 2006. Martin Klinger, the lawyer of our team, represented the brothers in these trials, amongst others, in the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg.
Die Verfahren für die Entschädigung vor deutschen Gerichten hatten keinen juristischen Erfolg. Die deutschen Gerichte konnten zwar nicht mehr an der Lüge festhalten, dass das Massaker eine normale Kriegsmaßnahme gewesen sei. Die Schulden Deutschlands gegenüber den Opfern sollten aber auf keinen Fall einklagbar sein.
Οι δικαστικοί αυτοί αγώνες για
These struggles, judicial struggles, trials for the reparations of the victims before German courts have not succeeded. The courts did not rule in favor of the claims, but the courts, they did not keep up with the claims. Standing until then, and the claim was that it was false what was said about the German atrocities abroad, and what they did was part of their war activities, normal war activities. Nevertheless, despite the fact that in Germany no one says now that it is a lie, we have not achieved until now the public opinion to recognize until now, that is, that Germany owes reparations to the victims of the massacres, and that their claims can be brought before the courts.
bis heute die Vollstreckung des griechischen Urteils durch juristische Finden und politische Einflussnahme. Dadurch wurde der Fall Distomo im Jahre 2008 auch vor dem Internationalen Gerichtshof in den Tag gezogen, um ohne die Betroffenen zu verhandeln. Das Urteil des IGH von 2012 konnte die Vollstreckung in Italien zwar verzögern, aber nicht stoppen.
Σε αντίθεση
Contrary
με το ανώτατο γερμανικό δικαστήριο,
to the Supreme Court in Germany,
τα ανώτατα δικαστήρια
the Supreme Courts of Greece and Italy
έχουν δικάσει ουσιαστικά,
have
έχουν αποδεχτεί
ruled in favor
των θυμάτων.
of the victims' claims.
Οι ομοσπονδιακές κυβερνήσεις όμως,
The various governments of Berlin, nevertheless, reject the execution of the court decision with certain legal tricks and by exercising political influence. So the case of this was brought in Hague in 2008, before the Court of Hague in 2008, where the discussion took place without the participation of the victims themselves. The decision of the High Court of International Court of 2012 had as a result the delay, but not the abolition of the execution of the court decision.
Ist und bleibt der Pfand im Kampf um die individuelle Entschädigung aller NS-Opfer. Es geht um nichts weniger als den individuellen Anspruch aller Opfer von Kriegsverbrechen auf Anerkennung und Entschädigung durchzusetzen und zu verankern. Kriege dürfen sich nicht für die Kriegsverbrecher lohnen. Die Täter und die Verantwortlichen müssen rechtlich und finanziell belangt werden.
Η απόφαση
The decision for Distomo is and still remains a guarantee that in the struggle for individual reparation of all victims of the Nazis will still remain in the future. What is sought here is that each individual victim of war crimes should be recognized and compensated for being a victim. Wars are not allowed to be in favor of the perpetrators. The perpetrators and those who are liable for these crimes should be persecuted legally and pay in cash.
Der Fall Distomo hat nicht nur eine europäische, sondern eine internationale Dimension erreicht.
The case of Distomo has taken not a European but an international dimension eventually.
Die Entschädigungsklagen der koreanischen Zwangsprostituierten unter faschistischer japanischer Besatzung nehmen direkt Bezug auf das Distomo-Verfahren. Ein Urteil gegen Japan zugunsten der Opfer ist von einem koreanischen Gericht in Seoul in diesem Jahr gesprochen worden.
Οι αγωγές αποζημίωσης
The claims for remuneration from Korea that were obliged to
στρατεύματα κατοχής
offer their services from the Japanese troops refer to the Distomo decision, a decision in favor of the victims of the Korean court in Seoul refers to the decision for the victims of Distomo.
Zwischen Deutschland und Namibia wegen des Völkermords an den Nama und Herero während der deutschen Kolonialherrschaft vor dem Ersten Weltkrieg zeigen, dass Deutschland nicht mehr ganz um seine historischen Schulden und Verantwortungen herumkommt. Die Ansprüche der Opfer müssten unserer Überzeugung nach aber rechtlich einklagbar sein.
Η τελευταία συμφωνία μεταξύ
the latest agreement between Germany and Namibia referring to the genocide of Herero and Nama nomads during the German occupation in the south area of Africa, colonial occupation, show that and before World War I, show that after many years, that even many years after, no one can evade historical responsibilities. We believe that the claims of the victims should be that beyond a general agreement between the states should be guaranteed that individual victims should be also be able to legally have their claims ruled in favor of them.
Schwieriger, aber antifaschistische Praxis notwendiger. Wir freuen uns sehr, dass an der viertägigen Konferenz auch Vertreter aus Lidice in Tschechien und Distomo in Italien teilnehmen, um die Debatte internationaler zu machen. Zusammen mit Yannis Tatas und Aristomenes Singalakis waren Gabriele Heinecke und ich im August 2019 zum Gedenktag in St. Anna di Sasema, wo Nazi-Truppen am 12. August 1944 ein großes Massaker verübten.
Η άνοδος, η επανεμφάνιση
The reappearance of fascist movements in Germany, in Italy, and in Greece, and extreme right-wing party participation in governments in Europe and in the world in general show that it is more than ever necessary to have an anti-fascist action, even though the conditions under which it operates today are even harsher. We are glad that in this four-day meeting, we have representatives from Lidice in the Czech Republic and from Stracena in Italy, in order to underline the international profile of this discussion, along with Yannis Tassas, the mayor, and Aristomenes Singalakis, myself, Lars says, and Gabriele Heinecke visited in August 2019 and participated in the events of Stracana di Salcente when the Nazi troops have committed on the 12th of August 1944 identical massacre to that of Distomo 2 months later.
Die Bestrafung der NS-Täter ist nach deren Ableben nicht mehr möglich. Die Verantwortung um den Umgang mit deren Verbrechen bleibt. Darum wird der AK Distomo weiterhin für die Entschädigung der Opfer und ihrer Angehörigen kämpfen. Dafür braucht es weiterhin einen sehr, sehr langen Atem. Zurzeit heißt das Verfahren zur Vollstreckung in Italien zu unterstützen, das Rechtsanwalt Joachim Lau seit 15 Jahren, trotz einiger Rückschläge, immer wieder durch seine hervorragende rechtliche Expertise voranbringt.
Η ποινική δίωξη των
Prosecution of the perpetrators, the Nazi perpetrators, for all those who have died, is not feasible any longer. But what remains is the responsibility
εγκλήματα που έχουν διαπράξει. Πώς
they had, their liability for their crimes. That is why AK Distomo continues to struggle for the reparations of the victims. This struggle needs a new impetus and patience. Today, that means that support is needed for the execution of the decision of Italy managed by the renowned lawyer Dr. Joachim Lau, who has been working on this case for 15 years now, as we all know.
Dieses Jahr werden wir leider nicht persönlich zum Gedenktag kommen können. Wir wollen nächstes Jahr wieder in Distomo an den Gedenkfeiern teilnehmen und gemeinsam für die Entschädigung der Opfer und das Belangen der Verantwortlichen kämpfen. Nichts ist vergessen.
Φέτος, λόγω της πανδημίας,
This year, because of the pandemic, we cannot come and visit Distomo in this commemoration event. Nevertheless, we will participate next year in the official commemoration event, and we will contribute with all our powers in the struggle for the reparation of the victims and the prosecution of the perpetrators. We never forget.
Herzlichen Dank. Evaristo, thank you for listening. We will meet again in Distomo.
Το μικρόφωνο σας.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ λοιπόν για την
We would like to thank you for this really comprehensive presentation of AK Distomo's initiatives, both with respect to the reparations and the prosecution of the perpetrators of the massacres before the German courts. Now, let's move on to another group of German activists and friends of the Distomo case, and all those fighting against crimes against humanity. I'm talking about Rolf Becker and Manfred Klingele, members of Solidarität So you have the floor. You decide who speaks first or who speaks on behalf of both. So we're looking forward to listening to both of you. Let's start with Mr. Becker.
I hope you can hear me.
Kann μεταφράσω γιατί δεν έγινες αντιληπτός. Der Moderator hat gefragt, ob Sie alle beide, was man sehr gerne begrüßen würde. Ναι, μεταφράζω γερμανικά γιατί δεν έγινε αντιληπτά αυτά που είπε ο Λούκας. Also er begrüßt, dass Sie mit dabei sind, teilnehmen wollen und er überlässt es Ihnen, nachdem er zunächst auch kurz etwas erzählt hat über Ihre Tätigkeit bis jetzt in dieser Sache, überlässt es also Ihnen, wer von Ihnen beiden anfängt und wer dann weitermacht. Also Sie haben das Wort.
Dann fange ich mal an.
Ja, fangen Sie an. Herr Archisi, λοιπόν.
Okay.
Gut. Kalispera. Good evening to everyone. Very sorry that we were too late. We didn't remember the difference of Greece time and European time. Sorry. In my very best horrible English, Germany and Greece, looting and terror in the Second World War. Today, economic blackmail within the European Union. We are a Greece solidarity group made up of people from different trade unions as well as...
Αν μου επιτρέπετε να πω τον τίτλο της ομιλίας, ίσως να γίνει κατανοητό ακριβώς τι θέλουμε.
There's an intervention in order to...
Λοιπόν, στην Ελλάδα,
intervention about the title of the presentation, Looting and Terror in World War II, Economic Blackmail as part of the EU today.
Αυτές οι δύο πτυχές της...
These are the two aspects of the Germans' role against Greece, the looting and the terror in World War II, and the blackmailing, the current blackmailing of Germans against Greece within EU. This is the essence of the presentation by Mr. Becker. Please go on.
Παρακαλώ, κύριε Μπέκερ.
I have to repeat what I said.
No, you do not.
Would you prefer when I speak in German?
Oh, fahr einfach weiter. Ich weiß nicht, warum eingegriffen hat.
Okay.
Θα προτιμούσαμε αγγλικά για να υπάρχει
διερμηνία. Only in English, please.
Αυτό που είπες και είναι βασικό.
Βεβαίως.
Also mal kurz in Deutsch, der Moderator hat praktisch den Titel Ihres Vortrages übersetzt und ausgeführt, damit die Hörer eben, damit es für die Hörer verständlich ist, was sie sagen werden. Also die Hauptworte eben, was im Zweiten Weltkrieg Deutschland gegenüber Griechenland getan hat und was ist die Rolle oder das Tun, die Deutschland heute gegenüber Griechenland heute innerhalb der Europäischen Union an den Tag legt. Bitte fangen Sie an und reden Sie weiter. Του είπα να συνεχίσει να μιλεί.
Okay, as I said, we are a Greece solidarity group made up of people from different trade unions as well as different...
Ο μιλητής λοιπόν συνεχίζει, μιλώντας για το πολιτικό και κοινωνικό πλαίσιο στην Γερμανία και στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση. Από το 2012 βρισκόμαστε σε υποκαθεστώς πολιτικών λιτότητας επιβλημένων στην Ελλάδα από την Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση. Και βεβαίως απέναντι στην άρνηση της γερμανικής κυβέρνησης να καταβάλει αποζημιώσεις για τα εγκλήματα που διέπραξαν οι γερμανικές ενόπλες δυνάμεις και βεβαίως για τη λαιλασία της χώρας και την καταστροφή των υποδομών της Ελλάδος. Εάν το αναγκαστικό δάνειο που η Ελλάδα αναγκάστηκε να δώσει στους Γερμανούς, το οποίο η γερμανική κυβέρνηση δεν θέλει ακόμα να επιστρέψει. Όπως ακριβώς και οι κλεμμένες περιουσίες των εβραϊκών κοινοτήτων. Σε όλη τη χώρα και παγκοσμίως ανεγείρονται μνημεία των εγκλημάτων Υπάρχουν μνημεία των ακροτήτων της Wehrmacht. Δίστομο, Χρυσούλα, Καλάβρητα.
For many people in Greece, an open wound in German-Greek relations. We support the repeated request of Agiris Tsuntouris, one of the few children you know who survived the massacre in Distomo, to close a tragic chapter of German history openly and honestly and with optimal acceptance in the public worldwide. And at the same time, to end this shabby sequel that degrades Germany anew. As early as 1947, Thomas Mann pointed out in a letter to the American journalist Agnes Elizabeth Meyer, the continent will be entrusted to Germany. But will a German Europe also mean a European Germany? I doubt.
Okay, I go on. We doubt like Thomas Mann and stay like you with it. War crimes do not become statute barred. It seems more urgent to us today than ever to point this out. Nationalist, racist, militarist, and fascist forces are growing stronger in almost all European countries. The sentence by Thomas Mann quoted above ends as follows, quote, unquote, "It will come down to power again, and I dread German power." So do we. Greece has seen German power again in recent years. This time, not as a military, but as an economic attack. The policy of the memoranda, which largely dictated Berlin, has plunged many Greeks into poverty. Trade union rights have been abolished, and public health systems have been ruined, to name only a few of these consequences. Greek politics was placed under the tutelage of the European Union and Berlin. That is why our group decided to travel to Greece 9 years ago. Solidarity from below instead of austerity from above. As labor unionists and politically active people, what counts for us is not only democratic rules, such as freedom of the press and freedom of demonstrations, elections, etc., but also the right to work, affordable housing, free public health care, education and training opportunities for all of us who come after us. Human solutions for refugees instead of barricaded borders, disarmament and stopping arms exports instead of military encirclement of Russia and China.
With Manolis Glezos words, he was in Hamburg, I think, 2015 at last, and he spoke to many thousands of workers on the 1st of May. History is knocking on our door. Can we hear it or not? Are we going to open the door or not? Because the future belongs to the workers. It belongs to the peoples and not to the capitalists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Το μικρόφωνο σας.
Ευχαριστούμε τον κύριο Κίνγκελε.
We would like to thank Mr. Becker, Mr. Kingele. Mr. Becker, would you like to say something more?
Υπήρξε μεταδιερμηνία.
Ob Sie beide fertig sind, fragt der Moderator, oder ob Sie noch was nachtragen wollen.
Manfred?
Ach, es kommen, es kommen ja noch so viele gute Leute, dann wollen wir die Zeit nicht wegnehmen.
Άμα ακολουθούν ακόμα πολλοί καλοί ενδιαφέροντες ομιλητές, δεν θέλουμε τον χρόνο.
Given that we have a set of great speakers after us, we don't want to waste more of your time. So great contribution. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to another German of Greek trained, let's say, writer and journalist, Mr. Eberhard Rondholz. He will talk to us about his own experience, his own thoughts, and for the development of the case of Nazi crimes in Europe, and of course about our standpoint vis-à-vis the reparations. Mr. Eberhard Rondholz, you have the floor.
Βεβαίως.
Ευχαριστώ πρώτα το Distomo.
First of all, I would like to thank Distomo, Giannis Stathas, for giving me the opportunity to participate in this extremely interesting topic. The title of my speech is 1,000 Unknown Lyrics and a Struggle of Memory and Restoration. I will say something in English, but we don't need to translate that.
The small Czech village which the German leveled to the ground in 1940 stands today as a symbol of German savagery. In Greece, there are 1,000, their names unknown, and by the world too busy, too cynical to remember. Έτσι είπε ο αρχικατήγορος Theodor Fenstermacher στις 10 Μαΐου.
That is what Westermacher said in the trial of Nuremberg, the seventh of trials before the World Crimes Tribunal. Among the perpetrators, we had the generals responsible for the massacres of Distomo. But Lidice massacre was synonym of the massacre. Unfortunately, the Distomo massacre was not visible, but just a few encyclopedias. But in Germany, there was much better information about the war crimes and for Distomo than elsewhere in the world, amongst others, because of the translations. When we see the collective tomes, Antigone left, Antigone is still alive, Axioti and Dimitris Hadjis were the publishers, including the novel of Marinos Sigeros, The Fair of death at Distomo. Regarding Nuremberg, I mentioned earlier, the minutes of the trials, what happened to them actually? After the end of the trial in the US government printing office, a lot of the minutes of the trials were printed in English and were available for a period of time in the cultural centers of America Häuser in Germany. The German translation plan for them did not proceed because of the cost. The American government decided after the initiation of the Cold War, the Nuremberg trial thought it should not sustain in public memory. That is why the crimes of Wehrmacht were silenced by the Americans. And we had just part in German, translated into German. Distomo became known publicly in Western Germany, and it was German veterans that made known the Distomo massacre during the 1980s, and all the mass media back then were referred to that. In Heidenfeld, citizens were scandalized by the family reunion for meetings organized in October since the end of 1950s. Hundreds ex-members of the Polizei Panzer Grenadier Division and some locals informed in 1980 for some mass media, the Köln TV station about these meetings, where Roth was presiding, who was an SS lieutenant. And during the events, there was a commemoration of death of dead military who were now in the army of the heavens, as they used to say. But they never talked about the victims of these high-ranked officials. Yorgos Sotiris had said that a letter and in the Ministry of the Interior of Bavaria. He mentioned in this letter that it is unheard of that even today in your country is feasible to have public events of this kind who just insult not only the memory of the dead, but also the feelings and the wishes of all people for freedom. It's not also understood that this event is approved by the authorities. That is why we protest against this event, and we demand from you to cancel this Nazist meeting of the ex-members of the SS. And of course, some anti-fascist declarations took place and demonstrations as well. At the same time, the mass media communicated the whole event, and that is how the Distomo massacre became known. Back then, the TV station sent a crew at Distomo And it was not the first time we went to Greece. We had one documentary on the Calabria massacre, but after that and other events that took place elsewhere, the massacre of Distomo raised awareness among Germans, and more people wanted to learn about that. Even the members of the parliament, in a question of the Social Democrat deputy about the meetings of the veteran SS, the deputy said characteristically about the protection of offered to SS, the justified accusation against the SS for the crimes they committed during World War II cannot be transferred in meetings of the presence where ex-military now participate to commemorate these massacres. But now I think that they should all be brought before justice for their behavior back then. And nevertheless, no claims were raised against those people because no decision was taken for that. So all of these war criminals evaded punishments. Back then, the spirit was totally different, and it was also scandalous, which was happened in Mitzenwatten in Bavaria, for which we heard earlier about from a previous speaker. Reinhardt back then said, in 2000, that those people were examples for us because they kept the military values like the comradeship and power. These people in 1944 massacred in a few months, in a sadist way, the 3,000 of old people and women, the massacre of Comeno and others are just few of the examples of the atrocities of that era. Things have changed. And now the president of the republic goes to Lykiades to ask for forgiveness because of the massacre that took place in the past, not recognizing the military values. Reinhardt, unfortunately, was not the only one who tried to save the lost honor of Wehrmacht. Distomo in Germany is now very well known in Germany, and it is owned to Argyris Sungouris, who survived on the 16th of June of 1944 as a 4-year-old survivor, along with his sister Sungouris. Actually grew up in an orphanage, became a professional, but the trauma of this childhood never abandoned him. In 1970, he translated the chronicle of the events of Distomo, and he published it in a German magazine he himself published in Germany. In his initiative, he the mayor of Stamoulis organized in 1994 a conference for freedom in commemoration of the massacre back then of Distomo. And this conference sought beyond communicating the events that took place in Distomo to create a spirit of humanitarian level in order to find persuasive answers to what led people to massacre people back then. Unfortunately, not many people appeared in the conference. The German authorities were not presented, but the two representatives of the embassy appeared incognito to jot down what was mentioned during this event against Germany, but they were revealed afterward. Spiegel justified the absence from this meeting, and he said that von Brendo would be accused as a perpetrator if participated in this conference. But what was the approach? That was the approach of the German state. And the embassy, the German embassy was asked what will be the course of the claims. And the embassy answered that this event took place in the frame of a war, so there is no question for reparations. In other words, the Ministry of the Exterior coincided with the perception of the SS that was an event that took place in the frame of war. The explanation given for the Distomo massacre was for Argyris Sunduris the impetus needed for him to make Distomo renowned all over the world. And that is when he raised a claim against the state of Germany. This judicial marathon followed this claim is well known to everyone. Just a remark for something that took place in Hague in the International Court. The representative of the Republic said that the claims of Greece
Germany knows well to huge, almost indescribable numbers of people. But international law is a law of reciprocity. In other words, German victims of war crimes would necessarily be in a position. What happened in particular when at the end of World War II, Germans and ethnic were expelled from the eastern parts of air raids against Hamburg and Dresden would have to be examined as to their compatibility with international humanitarian law. I could also give an account of the losses suffered by my own family. Με άλλα λόγια, πάθατε εσείς οι Διστομίτες και εσείς...
In other words, you, the people of Distomo and from Calavrita, suffered a lot, and we have suffered as well, and we have learned. And I felt ashamed at that moment when I heard these words uttered. Well, to cut a long story short regarding the reparations to the victims today, about what is happening in German parliament regarding the claims of Athens and what happened there in February. We will hear tomorrow from Der Linke representative, the only party in German parliament supporting the reparation and the claims of Greece regarding this law. That is what I wanted to share with you in brief. Thank you very much. We would like also to thank Mr. Rondhod and thank you for the data you shared with us. I can reassure you with a personal testimony that the Germans were never aware about Distomos and other crimes elsewhere. And when I talked to a German that I am from Distomo, where these things happened in 1990, back then, and he answers. He stands up and said the German army has never done these atrocities. Back in 1990, a doctor in a friendly discussion I had with him, he was never aware of these events because the German state never communicated these crimes to German people to be tortured. I will say something from my youth. I visited Distomo in 1956. I was a student back then, traveling with a backpack in Delphi, and then from Delphi to Osios Lukas. People would visit this area back then. I visited Distomo without actually being aware what took place back then. At school, in high school, we have never heard about the atrocities that took place in Greece, nor the atrocities that took place in Yugoslavia. Because most of the teachers that were involved with the events of this area were not allowed to give more information. That is why it took time for these events to be.
Με την Ελλάδα. Αυτός ο λόγος για το οποίο και εμείς και ακόμα στο πανεπιστήμιο δεν μάθαμε τίποτα στην αρχή. Και είχα Έλληνες φίλους εκεί στη Βόνη όταν σπούδαζαν και μια μέρα μου είπαν έχεις ένα όνομα πολύ παράξενο, Eberhardt, θα σε βαφτίσουμε αλλιώς. Πώς? Θα έχεις από σήμερα το παρατσούκλι Μανώλης. Λέω γιατί Μανώλης? Για τον Μανώλη Γλέζο που γίνεται μια δίκη τώρα με τον 509 στην Αθήνα κλπ. Και εγώ δεν ήξερα ποιος Μανώλης Γλέζος. Για φανταστείτε, αυτό το 1962 δεν ήξερα ποιος ήταν ο Μανώλης Γλέζος. Στην Ανατολική Γερμανία το κάθε παιδί τον ήξερε, διότι έγιναν συνέχεια και διαδηλώσεις ώστε τον Μανώλη Γλέζο κλπ. Όταν έγινε η δίκη. Αυτό ανέκδοτο από τα νιάτα.
Ωραία. Περνάμε τώρα από τις δίκες και από την ιστορία και από όλες αυτές τις μαρτυρίες σε έναν άλλον τομέα που πολλαπλώς έχει ασχοληθεί με την ανάδειξη και τη διεκδίκηση και με το μέλλον. Είναι ο καλλιτεχνικός χώρος, ας το βαφτίσω έτσι. Πρόπερση συγκεκριμένα ξεκίνησε ένα συγκρότημα και ένας καλλιτέχνης ο οποίος έχει μεγάλη απήχηση στις πιο νεότερες γενιές από μας και σε μας βέβαια, αλλά και στις πολύ πιο νεότερες γενιές και μίλησε, όπως μίλαγε για τα ανθρώπινα δικαιώματα, μίλησε για το Δίστομο. Είναι ο Μιχάλης Μητακίδης, ευρύτερα γνωστός ως BD Formur, που είναι ένας Έλληνας ράπερ και μουσικός παραγωγός, μέλος του hip-hop low band συγκροτήματος Active Member. Πασίγνωστο, όπως είπα, στις νεότερες γενιές. Και τους μεσήλικες βεβαίως και σε εμάς. Το συγκρότημα δημιουργήθηκε τον Ιούνιο του 1992 από τον ίδιο το Μιχάλη Μητακίδη και την ίδια χρονιά δημιούργησε και μια μικρή δική του εταιρεία παραγωγής μουσικών έργων, η οποία κυκλοφόρησε και τον πρώτο δίσκο το 1993 του ελληνικού hip-hop. Έχει κάνει πάρα πολλές δουλειές. Το 1999 παρουσίασε λοιπόν ένα έργο και μάλιστα παίχτηκε για πρώτη φορά στο μαυσολείο του Διστόμου. Εδώ είναι Δίστομο, ένα μεγάλο λυρικό θα έλεγα για τη δική μου οπτική έργο, αλλά δεν είμαι εγώ ο ειδικός να το βαφτίσω, είναι ο ίδιος, ο οποίος είναι μαζί μας εδώ να μας πει ακριβώς για αυτό το έργο και τη συμβολή της τέχνης στην ανάδειξη και στην διεκδίκηση των δίκαιων αιτημάτων των θυμάτων του ναζισμού και του φασισμού. Κύριε Μητακίδη.
Καλησπέρα. Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Σας άκουσα έτσι, υπομονετικά όλους. Εγώ θέλω να ξεκινήσω από το ότι όταν μου ζητήσανε να δώσω έναν τίτλο για αυτά που θα πω, είπα τον τίτλο ενός από τα κομμάτια που είχα γράψει για αυτό που συνέβη πέρσι.
So, this live presentation that took place at the mausoleum just for the dead people, there were no people alive allowed to be there, only the dead were there, so it was worth it. So, the title was When You Cross This Cliff, really translated. And this is my relationship with Distomo. I was actually going through the area of Distomo, and every time I used to take a look at the cliff, I used to feel quite awkward. And I decided one day to ask my friends there things that other people wouldn't dare asking. That's why that was what brought me to the museum. And when your mayor, Yannis Tathas, and the people there, Mr. Christos and others, gave me this beautiful tour, it was a shallow dive in our censored past, if I may say. So it was when I decided, after I heard them very attentively, I decided to visit the mausoleum in order to listen to what it was said by those that I had to listen to. I spent some time there, and for good or for bad, the place spoke to me. And it was my duty, to use this beautiful language of ours, the Greek language. We don't have to say many things because most of the things are being suggested. I don't know if other people in the world are so lucky to speak such a language, but those who speak Greek are surely quite lucky. So I wrote the song in order to come closer to the actual topic. Of course, the issue of fascism, of the Nazi, something I've been against for many, many years. I was grown up in Perama. I was born by refugees. I'm a son of refugees who came from Constantinople. So you understand that the son of refugees cannot tolerate those practices, those stories. So being a Perama born and Perama raised child, I was always close to that story for many reasons. The most important one being the reason of aesthetics. So allow me, truth be told, I was raised with a grandfather who used to be a lieutenant, a captain of Aris Vellichiotis, without being a member of the Communist Party, and that allowed him to think freely until the day he died. It was also the case with Aris. So I had many stories from them, also about Smyrna, about Pontus. And there was always a German hero somewhere in between. We all know that it was German Ottomans who made the massacre in Podos, who committed the massacre against the Armenians also. It was those people who drove our relatives to the sea. I'm a refugee and I was always jealous of those having a home country of their own. Although they've been through suffering a lot, at least they had something. My country, my home country, is my language, the one I'm still using as a tool. Anyway. So I would like to have my lyrics expressing my thoughts. So if we have time, and if I may, I'd like to read some of my lyrics. Of course, let me read something to you. For those who do not speak Greek, might be difficult, but please do not translate them in English or in German, because you cannot translate them. And because these people have something Greek in them, they will understand something. So following the request of the speaker, I will not translate his lyrics into English.
Από αυτόν τον λόφο όταν περνάς, να βρίσκεις θάρρος να κοιτάς τον ουρανό, όπως κοιτούσαν οι ασκλάβοι. Από αυτόν τον λόφο όταν περνάς, να στέκεσαι, να προσκυνάς. Σε αυτόν τον λόφο μην ξεχνάς, δεν πέρασε ο μαμονάς, να ξεπλύνει το αίμα των απροσκύνητων και της ντροπής ο κορβανάς, ποτέ δεν γιόμισε από μας. Σε αυτόν τον λόφο μην ξεχνάς, δεν ήρθες για να συμπονάς, ήρθες και αντάμωσες όλα τα δίκαιτα. Ο ψεύτικος σου τεμενάς, ακόμα ένας καταχανάς. Από αυτόν τον λόφο λοιπόν όταν περνάς, το μίσος μην το προσπερνάς. Είναι αυτό που μακέλεψε τους λεύτερους. Και αν βιάζεσαι και συγχωρνάς, είναι χαριστική βόλη για μας τους λεύτερους. Κάπως έτσι, δεν ήθελα να πω πολλά, δεν ξέρω αν θέλετε να με ρωτήσετε κάτι. Ο Γιάννης δεν ξέρω αν θέλει να πει κάτι από την εμπειρία που ζήσαμε παρέα.
So, these were the lyrics. I don't know if you have anything to ask me. I always try not to feel emotional. I tend not to become emotional. I'm quite strong as a person, but please bear with me. It's very difficult for me. Many have accused us that we are in search or in a hunt for ghosts. And what we do is pointless. There have been German institutes accusing us that we rekindle the hatred amongst people. Of course, the answer has been the one we always give. In order for you to look us straight in the eyes, in order for you to look and talk to us, the people who do not stop fighting, you have to have certain qualities, and you do not. Your children and your grandchildren are right to try and absolve themselves of this crime. But until this crime is fully absolved, until then they won't be able to look us in the eye because this is what Greece is about. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Lucas, I'd like to say a big thank you to Michalis, because through this process I've met a lot of people, and all the panelists are friends of mine, because we have fought together. Michalis is a very specific case because I was intimidated at the beginning. Many come to us and want to talk about Distomo, and I'm always a bit reserved. I'm cautious with them, but in the case of Michalis, what happened was that, as he said before, it is as if the dead spoke through his songs. He reminds us of the mourning by the grandmothers in the past, the lament of the grandmothers, and his lyrics really touch us. We grow up with the mourning, with the suffering, with this melancholy in our eyes, in this lament, because as Michael said, we never went out to slaughter any other people. Okay, this is not, I'm not a bit off topic, but Michalis, truly you have touched upon our souls with your lyrics, with your songs, with your stance, truly. And I've never said that in public, I say it now. I was always reserved in the beginning, but yes, I experienced that. Thank you very much. My brother, thank you. Because it's one of the things that give a meaning, gives meaning to our life. Because music is an industry. It's a dirty business, and sometimes it's better when you're in communication with drug dealers or with weapon smugglers instead of musicians and artists. We're talking about a very dirty circuit, and it's good that we have stories, and like the story of Calavrita or the story of Distomo, to allow us and keep our conscience clean, because we didn't experience that. We lived this massacre through your sayings and through your words. And when we performed at the Mausoleum in Distomo, it was the first time in my life I felt nervous, although there was not a huge public. On the other side, on the other hand, and my mistake, I didn't mention the crew, the theater crew, the Theatrofrenia crew, the theatrical party, and they were amazing, and we will be able in the future to perform the same act once the time is right. Michalis, let me announce something to you. We have already arranged with the guys from Berlin, Manfred, and the others, to host in our little theater of with the name of the German director, to perform the same play there. I don't remember the name. Ah, you want to ruin me? I cannot. after we burned our US after we burned our passports because of the US attack in Yugoslavia, in Serbia, I'm not able to fly to the US. Now I cannot fly to Germany. Yeah? So, yes, we'll have the same play of Brecht to be performed there, and we have discussed with the local competent authority running the theater. It's a very small, alternative, picturesque theater, and we will perform there. There's a lot of people in Germany who really helps us, and let us not forget that the German people have suffered a lot by the Nazi. We must never forget that. And they had huge issues as well. This is what Nazism is about. It's a great bit of news. Mr. Mitakidis says, I'm at your disposal. It's something fresh. Both Andy and you are the first to know. Andy helped us with that a lot. We have already made arrangements in order to host this event there. The mayor is very keen to surprise us. Yanis is a fighter. And I really don't have good words for those in politics, but for this crazy guy, I have a lot of good words to say. It's not the place now. Now, Michalis, let me say something that I read in an interview of yours on the occasion of your performance in the mausoleum. You said that it's high time that we took revenge in a different way to theirs. We hope that our songs, by means of our songs, the lawyers by means of their knowledge, everyone from one's own standpoint. It's very important to highlight this struggle, this fight through activism, through music, through theater, through, yes, of course, I agree. Indeed, the Distomo case is something discussed in Germany as well, and I hope that we poke the consciousness of those people and we raise the sense of guilt. And I think that amongst the progressive thinkers of Germany, the idea is mature to transform this claim of ours in a different way, because apart from the ethical reparation, we also have the financial one, because it's an aspect of making right to the people who love. Because even a single mark, as Glezos had said, that is enough. It's a fight for justice. It's a fight to make right for those who died. And we're really proud of having people. We're proud of being able to have activists, musicians, artists by our side. Mr. Manolis Les was one of our beloved ones. We all learned through these difficulties of our times. We found out how peculiarly, how odd life may treat us when we were not allowed to celebrate for the Germans who had left. It was something amazing. We were not allowed to celebrate the departure of Germans. The next time we will have the commemoration at the mausoleum. One day we will have celebrations in Distomo, with music, not just a funeral service. It's something equally important for the dead. Thank you very much. Have a great life. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all. Allow me to close by thanking everyone involved. The first time we do something like that. We discuss with people, with friends. These friends who participated today, we have been fighting together with them. We have a long way ahead. And this is something for today's and future generations to understand, that the fight against Nazism and fascism never stops. It's our obligations to put on such a fight in any way, as Michalis said, in the courts, by means of music, or by activism, by arts. This is our task, this is our duty vis-a-vis those who were massacred, and vis-a-vis the following generations. I think this is our duty. And because technology and the internet allows us to have these things remaining for a lifetime when our time will be done, so that future generations know what happened and what each generation owes to another, which is the fight for democracy, social justice, freedom, and this is an everyday life, an everyday fight. It never stops. Thank you very much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, truly. And I hope next year we will be able to meet in person in order to commemorate those who lost their lives in this time and elsewhere in the world, and do what is proper and, of course, healthy and safe at this moment. Lucas, want to say something? The only thing, the only thing I have to say to the dear participants and viewers that tomorrow we will meet on the same time. We will have Faye Mavragani, our fellow compatriot, moderating this event. And at the same time, we will be waiting for you using the same URL. Thank you, everyone, and everyone attending. This discussion will be available on YouTube and through our municipality's website in a few days, so that everyone may watch it again and keep this discussion going with the discussion that we started today. Thank you. See you tomorrow at the same time. Thank you.